Patch 6.2 is coming out soon, so I wanted to make a brief video covering the major changes and what you can expect coming up when it releases. So let's just dive right in. Magic item rework. This is actually a really good change. Most of the items I've found to be picking up had significantly more utility and powerful effects, and you get a lot less of them. There's more effects added to the item pools, such as barrier and healing cap buffs. It plays well. I've so far noticed and liked the changes. Getting an item feels a bit more rewarding now and less like a piece of admin. Also, the game now picks up when you're not using a certain item, so it'll award less of them. So garbage items like a pigeon plucker pendant should appear less in your inventories if you don't equip them, or if you salvage or fuse them. Fusing items together is actually very useful now. Armor pieces can be fused to get significantly better armor pieces. It's a very nice change and I think it will be very well received. Getting heroes to increase the rate of magic items being dropped, I think, will be a very worthwhile strategy to start decking out lords with high tier armor with the fuse mechanic rework. You can now also take multiple of the same banners into battle. This will be helpful for people who love the banner of swiftness, like me. 2D portholes. This is also another small but nice change. For folks like myself who like to save their FPS by having 2D portholes turned on, they've updated all the port rates, and they look much better now. Not much to say about this, but I think it's a really nice quality of life improvement for us 2D porthole peasants. Compression. The devs have been clever and basically done a bit of wizardry on the code in the game to tidy things up. This has resulted in speedier loading times for getting into campaigns and battles and the like. Now, I didn't test loading times because I have a life, but the game did seem to load a bit faster into battles particularly. Now, this isn't like the Potion of Speed update, which massively increased the quality of life of the game, but it's a nice addition. The patched version of the game is sitting at a pretty reasonable 82GB, down from the 120GB previously, so I'm very happy with this part. AI changes. There's two different ways of playing. On by default is option 1, AI strength and threat assessment. I played a campaign and truth be told I didn't notice much of a difference. Second option is a bit strange. I realised when trying to start a campaign I actually had to turn on endgame crisis mode to toggle this particular setting on, as I typically play without the endgame crisis mode because I think it's poorly implemented and boring. But I decided to spin up a quick test to check this out. I played as Bellicor on easy mode, my plan being to sit on this island as a hermit of sorts and send out heroes to check on the state of the world. After 69 turns of chilling, occasionally having Wulfric declare war on me and sue for peace without fighting me, I can conclude I didn't notice much of a difference on this either. The major factions still swallowed most of the minor factions. I did notice that the Southern Sentinels held out for quite some time, and considering that they're Skrulk's starting enemy, that is a bit impressive, but they were then swallowed by the Cult of Sotek a turn or so later. So that was that. Lyonesse lasted quite some time, so did the Scourge of Cain. Basically, from my rather limited test, I don't think you'll ever see minor factions in a position of power like major factions led by a legendary lord do. They might hold out for a bit longer and recruit more armies, but I don't think you'll see Midland conquering the Empire. But you might see a little bit less major faction hegemony in the late game. I also think that this might be a bit of a buff to Warriors of Chaos factions and their vassals. With a bit more intelligence, your Norscan vassals might be a bit more useful on the battlefield. 2 free units. Blood Knights are now a default sword and shield variant. Then you have Blood Knights with lances for your anti-large. Hobgoblin bolt throwers, useful for the Chaos Dwarfs in the early game to get some siege weapons, just at the very beginning. But they're still bolt throwers and still bad. Poor accuracy and pretty measly damage. Nice to have though. Other changes. Now, the rest of the updates I'm not going to go over in great detail because they're all pretty minor. Probably one of the biggest changes is Minotaurs of Khorne getting woodsmen and hide in forests, which I had noticed they didn't have, but I thought it was to make the Beastmen Minotaurs a bit better. And because they're red, they'll probably stand out a bit more. Now, the Cornitaurs can do sneaky woods play too. Drazinas can now fire whilst moving on a warhorse. Mournhowl is now anti-infantry. I swiftly gave him the new Wormslayer sword to correct this. Seekers of Slaanesh, basically all variants of them, have received another nerf. Less entities will be able to hit in melee. I know that they used to be really strong, but I didn't think another nerf was needed. But then I'm not the best person to talk to you about that. Conclusions. Nice patch, I'm happy with the changes and additions. I just really want a siege rework. That's probably copium at this point, but yeah, this patch is solid. Clever things to decrease load times are always very welcome. New units are also very welcome. I think with the Blood Knights getting a sword and shield model, I'm about 80% sure the next race for the DLC is Vampire Counts. They received Graveguard with polearms, now they're getting Blood Knights. Come on, it's vampire time. Anyway, I've been Blake, delivering my take. Thank you all so much for watching.